In today's episode, let's talk about apostrophes.
Hi Vikings, I'm Terry,
And I'm Susan. Welcome to Vike Equip.
where we are equipping you, our students, to be successful in the classroom. The first way we can use an apostrophe is to form a contraction. And that's when we take two individual words and put them together. So for example, if you have the word I will, you can take out the W-I, combine the letters, put the apostrophe in, and you have I'll. Next is you would. If you want to combine you would to become you'd, you just take out the W-O-U-L, place in the apostrophe, and you have the word you'd. Another one that we use a lot is cannot. We often say, I can't go. So if we want to form the contraction can't, we combine cannot, put the apostrophe where the letters are popped out, and we have the word can't.
So, one of the ways that we can use an apostrophe is to form a contraction. But the second way that we can use an apostrophe is to show ownership or possession. Now, keep in mind that just because a word ends in S doesn't mean it merits an apostrophe, right? We have to see if it owns something. In this example, the school's computer was broken. Does the school own the computer?
Yes, they do.
Okay, then it merits an apostrophe. So that apostrophe is showing that the school owns something. She treasures her mother's necklace. Does the mother own the necklace?
Yes, she does.
Then she gets an apostrophe too. How about this? The student's essay was well written. Does the essay belong to the student?
Yes.
Yes? Then an apostrophe is needed. So we use that apostrophe to show ownership.
Now, something that gets a little tricky is singular words that end in S. So if you have a singular word that ends in S, we're going to add an apostrophe and an S to show the possession. So we have some people here. We have Doris, James, and Chris. Well, we need to show the purse belongs to Doris. So we add an apostrophe S, and then we know that the purse belongs to Doris. Doris's purse.
And there's just one Doris.
Right.
One Doris owning that purse.
We have one James who owns one bat. So since his name ends in S, we put the apostrophe S, and it shows that one James owns the bat. And the same with Chris's smile. Chris has a great smile. One Chris, apostrophe S, shows the smile belongs to Chris. Something else that gets a little tricky is a plural word ending in S. If a plural word ends in S, then all we do is add the apostrophe after the S. So here we have boys' statements. Susan, I think what this is doing is telling me that there are multiple boys that have statements. So in that case, boys is plural. I'm just going to add the apostrophe after the S.
Absolutely. And if that apostrophe was before the S, it would tell us that only one boy owned those statements.
Yes. Students' essays. This means that essays belong to many students. So I'm going to put the apostrophe after the S. So here's our example. Boy, apostrophe S, one boy. Boys with the apostrophe after the S means multiple boys.
Okay, so if the apostrophe is before the S and it said something like the boy's dog, the apostrophe before the S would mean that one boy owns that dog,
Yes,
right?
correct.
And then the apostrophe after the S, the boy's dog, would mean that more than one boy owned that dog.
Right, brothers.
Okay,
Yeah.
easy enough. Now, sometimes it gets a little tricky because we might have two people owning something. So if two people own the same thing, we're going to put the apostrophe S after the second name only. So we wouldn't say John's and Julie's house has a screened porch. John and Julie own that house, so that's the first test. There is ownership, but they're owning it together. So we're going to put the apostrophe S after the second name only. Now, if they had, let's say that it said something like John's and Julie's heart surgeries went well. Okay, now they can't own the same heart. So I would give John an apostrophe S and Julie an apostrophe S in that case. But as long as it's joint ownership, apostrophe S after the second name only. So again, it's very important that we remember we don't use an apostrophe just because a word ends in S. We use an apostrophe if it's showing that there's ownership, right? Don't use an apostrophe if the word is simply indicating more than one. Look at this little guy. He is making the sign out front, in front of the restaurant, specials. Specials aren't own anything. There's just more than one. No apostrophe needed. So apostrophe man has to take the chalk away. All right, let's look at a couple of other examples. We watched 14 movies last weekend. Yes, movies ends in S. But does movies own last? No, it's just plural. No apostrophe is needed. The dogs chase the cats through the yards around the houses. A lot of words end in S's in this sentence. Yet none of them own the word behind them, so no apostrophes are needed. The dolphins and the whales put on quite a show. There's just more than one dolphin and more than one whale, but in this example, they're not owning anything, so no apostrophes are needed. However, let's look at this last example. The dolphin's fin was bent, and the whale's tank sprang a leak. Okay, this is different. The dolphin owns its fin. The fin belongs to the dolphin. There's only one dolphin, so I'm going to use an apostrophe before the S. And the whale's tank sprang a leak. So I have a tank that belongs to the whales. What am I indicating when I put the apostrophe after the S? That there's more than one whale in that tank. So save the apostrophe. Don't use it when we're just showing plurality. Use it when we're showing ownership or possession. Another way that we can use the apostrophe is with special uses of time, letters, and numbers. Let's look at these for just a few minutes. A week's work. Well, now I know it doesn't look like the week owns the work, but because this is a special use of time, we're going to go ahead and add an apostrophe. Today, I earned a day's pay. Again, a special use of time earns an apostrophe. I can be there in a moment's notice. A special use of time, I'm going to go ahead and add that apostrophe. With letters, we also need to add apostrophes, and let me show you why. If we have a sentence like this, cross your T's and dot your I's. Right, if we look at this, it looks like the word down here is, right? And TS, we're like, what does that even mean? But if we add those apostrophes, it becomes very clear to our reader that we're talking about T's and I's. We could do the same thing on the next sentence. He earned all A's this semester. Without the apostrophe, it looks like this word is as. But if I add the apostrophe, we suddenly know he's a good student. With numbers, we do not usually use apostrophes because there's not the confusion that's caused with letters. For instance, her email address contained many sevens. Well, no one's going to mistake in what sevens means, so I don't have to add an apostrophe there. I remember the 1980s well. Now, I know the temptation is to add an apostrophe right there before that S. However, there's no confusion, so the S doesn't need an apostrophe. If I say, I remember the 80s well, now I want an apostrophe because it's used more like a contraction. I've removed the numbers 19, and so I want to start that with an apostrophe, the 80s. The 80s, they were great years. Look at our last example. What do those ampersands mean? Here it's a symbol or a sign, and as long as it doesn't cause confusion with the S and look like another word, I do not need an apostrophe. Okay, Terry, so let's take it and test our knowledge here.
Okay.
So these are signs that were actually located in towns across America. The first one says, no dogs allowed. What's wrong with that?
Well, let me look at that. Susan, that shows me that the apostrophe S shows that the dogs should be owning allowed. And dogs cannot own allowed, so we need to remove the apostrophe and just make it plural and say no dogs allowed.
That's exactly right. Good job.
Okay, what about this next one, Susan?
Joshua's Creek Drive. All right, on this sign, the creek actually belongs to Joshua, so I want to put an apostrophe before that S, showing that ownership. So Joshua, apostrophe S, Creek Drive.
Okay. Let's see this next one.
What are you going to do with that? Let's go Cavaliers.
Well, so they're cheering on their team, but it can't just be let's. I think they mean let us go Cavaliers.
Yes.
And so in that case, we're forming a contraction, popping the U out and placing the apostrophe. So it needs to be L-E-T apostrophe S. Let's go Cavaliers.
Nicely done.
What about this last one, Susan?
Okay, professional signs and lettering. Well, I would be a little hesitant to turn my business over to these folks because signs is just plural. There's just more than one. It's not owning anything. No apostrophe is needed.
Oh, that would be so embarrassing to buy a
It
sign
would.
from them.
Imagine already spending the money and then having this show up.
So our caution, attention, apostrophes are not needed every time a word ends in an S.
That's right. That's right. Only if there's ownership indicated. Now go have fun with apostrophes. Until next time, Vikings, sail on!